Hi, everybody. Barry McGuire here for Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education Series. It's the Monday main event. We meet up on Mondays, most Mondays in the year, and talk about creative real estate, all things to do with creative real estate. We work in various fields to talk: finance, insurance, foreclosure, development, renovation, all those kinds of things. Been very valuable to have them in. And really what we're trying to do is help everybody polish up their creative investing strategies and just get better at it. So that's what the Monday main event is all about. For those of you who haven't tuned in before, my wife Donna and I put on amazing, what we call focus workshops, where we meet up live and teach all the techniques, the documents, the negotiating, the exactly how you do it. And we love doing that. We did our last one September of this year. Happy to be back live after not doing anything live because of COVID. We did an agreement for sale event that was absolutely amazing. I love agreements for sale. But we also do focus workshops on wholesaling, fix and flip, joint ventures, rent to own, as well as agreement. Them all over a 2-day weekend event. So we have a couple coming up. We're planning a multifamily event. We're also planning another AFS event. And just before we got shut down for COVID, we were working on a wholesaling or assignments event. So all of those are coming up in the future. So stay tuned for when those are going to happen. All right. So last week we had on for second appearance, Garth, Gencor Mortgage, and Neil Shopsowitz, also a mortgage broker, works with Dominion Lending. He and Garth have partnered up on putting together multifamily financing. So we had Garth on once before, but Garth and Neil on last week. And this was a follow-up to Garth's first presentation on multifamily financing, particularly CMHC's new program, the MLI Select program. That's a new program with a big housing. And if owners are prepared to put together affordable housing, CMHC is prepared to do things like give you extended amortizations. I think you can get an amortization of up to 50 years. Better interest rates, better terms, more money. It's a great program. And so last week was extremely well attended. It's really well attended. For anybody who didn't pick it up last week, I suggest you take a look and a listen at what we did. We're going to have Neil and Garth back sometime in the future, but it was really great. And there were a huge number of questions, as you might expect. We couldn't answer them all in the 1 hour that we had, but Garth, good guy that he is, after the event, went back through and answered all those questions. So anybody who missed last week's event, you can see it all, plus have the benefit of seeing Garth's answers to the questions that we didn't talk about. So that was MLI Neil Shopsowitz. Watch for them coming up in the future. Today, though, we are going to delve into the everyman agreement for sale strategy. Everyman. Why do I say that? Because our guest today is Mark Bradford. Mark is a self-described small town guy. He's just a guy. Mark, is that what you are? Just a guy? Just a guy.
Just a plain old guy, yeah.
Plain old guy. And folks, Donna tells me that our internet is stopping every once in a while. It's buffering a little bit. So we've tried everything we can to make it work as quickly as we can and avoid those things, but it's probably going to happen throughout the event. So you'll just have to bear with us. So Mark Bradford. Mark, small town guy.
Hello, everyone.
Mark's own words. I'm just a small town guy who started with nothing but debt.
Which is true.
Nothing but debt. That's a great, which is true. So you moved to Central Alberta in 2002. Where did you move from?
I'd been in Kamloops for 4 years, and I'd been in Olds before that. So
Okay, in Olds, Kamloops, and back to Central Alberta. You had debt in the form of a truck loan and a student loan. And what did you know about real estate when you moved back to Central Alberta?
I didn't know much. I knew that it was a good thing, I suppose, to own a house. I didn't know what a mortgage was, really. Thought rich people are the ones that owned houses, not any old small town boy.
No. And do I remember that you were a member of the Real Estate Investment Network, the RAIN group?
Yeah, that's right. Joined that, I don't know, 14 years ago maybe or something.
Yeah. Great place to get education. That was certainly the go-to organization for lots of Canadian investors. They, of course, the RAIN group traveled across the country doing regular live monthly seminars. They are, they have adapted to a different format because of COVID. So they are still an educational group, but back in the day, I believe there were 3,500 members across the country. So it was a big group. And of course, I appeared there on a regular basis doing my famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, Tales from the Trenches, which are stories about what kind of troubles people get themselves into. So you got some education with the Real Estate Investment Network. We took one of our focus workshops, at least one, I think.
One, maybe two. I think it was two.
Maybe it was two.
Yeah.
Maybe it was two. And so, folks, I never quite know how to say this. I get emails from people all the time. Barry, I understand you know all about fill in the blank, agreements for sale, rent to own, whatever it is. I'd like to sell my house by rent to own. Can you do the documents? And I just kind of, when I get those emails, because, understanding rent to own or any creative strategy, enough so that you can put together a deal and not get yourself in too much trouble. I mean, it's more than the documents. It's understanding the strategy and how all the pieces fit together. And when I get those emails from people, I go, and I don't want to say, well, why don't you just buy my course? Buy one of my focus workshops. Come to a live event. You can buy the online home study kits, but I don't know, I'm kind of uncomfortable saying that. But I guess my point is that to be able to do creative strategies, you have to get your education somewhere, and you can dive right into it without knowing anything and get your ass handed to you and pay a lot of money. And that's a form of education. If you do enough of those, you'll learn how to do it for sure. But
absolutely.
You took a couple of our focus workshops, including an agreement for sale focus workshop. So now are you in Stettler or Lacombe? Where are you?
Stettler.
In Stettler, which is right in Central Alberta. And are you married by this time?
Yeah. I was married a couple of years before we moved out here.
Okay, so married. You got a couple of wonderful kids. And what are you doing in Stettler? How do you make your living?
I've been a builder here for 18 years now.
Okay.
I have some buy and hold rentals. I flip and kind of anything else that brings in a buck.
Right. So you're a builder by trade, and do you do all kinds of things? Like, would you build a house right from the bare lot to the finished product? Is that?
Yeah, that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do.
Okay.
All right. The rentals, that was kind of I got a little bit disappointed with our RSPs, so I made my own retirement fund, I guess, if you will. And that was just, we've been building that as we go.
Okay. All right. So you're doing you're a builder. You're buying some properties, basic buy and hold. But sooner or later, you did a couple of agreements for sale, a couple of AFS deals. So let's talk about deal number one. Let's firstly tell us, because people always want to know, where do you find these deals? Right? Where do you find
Um,
And so tell us, came across deal number one.
Yeah, they found. It seems like that's the advantage of a small town. People do know who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
So people do tend to call me. This particular one, one of my painters from the past phoned me up and asked if I was interested in buying a house. Of course, that's a pretty vague question. So tell me more. Let's find out more. Have a look at it. And so that's what we do. We go there and look at the house, and it actually wasn't his house. It was, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or live-in or roommate or how it was, but it was for this lady anyways. And so yeah, we found out what her situation was, what she wanted, and then I think about it for trying to figure out how to make it work on my end and their end.
Okay, so now what kind of a house are we looking at? Style and size, and how does it?
Bungalow, 1050 to 1100 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, main floor, basement, old, needs updated, modified.
Yeah, classic, a classic.
It had been smoked in. It was very dated.
Mm-hmm.
And smoked in, needed up. Yeah, just needed a lot of work.
A lot of work. All right, and so so they bang on your door, or don't bang on your door. You get the phone call, and then you have a conversation. And so why did they to deal with you? Is it because your painter guy knew you bought houses, and maybe you would just buy? I mean, is that what it was?
I think that was their initial thought was, yeah, here's the guy that buys houses. Let's talk to him.
All right.
Probably thinking we could save a realtor fee. And I kind of gathered they didn't really like the idea of dealing with a realtor.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just had that conversation and it just, yeah, we went to figure out, well, what works for you, what works for me, what would you be happy taking as a purchase price. Ultimately, I explained to them that I've got enough properties now that I'm having trouble with financing with the banks because they say, oh, sorry, you've got too many properties.
Yeah.
So I'll help you if you help me, type of deal.
Yeah.
And they were okay with that.
Yeah, that's the critical thing, isn't it? You have to be able to introduce the notion of what an AFS is, which is seller financing.
Right.
So, that a lot of us are in. It's hard to go to the bank and get another mortgage. I mean, I think what's my portfolio? Our portfolio is now about 22 doors, and we have mortgages on all of them. And I haven't applied for a mortgage in the last little while because that's about what I want for my portfolio. But I'm dead sure if I go to the bank and they'll say, Barry and Donna, you have 22 mortgages. We're not giving you any more money. So, I mean, I know there's ways around that and different ways to present it, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, yes, it's difficult to get financing once you reach a certain point. So they were, or she was, I guess, not opposed to the idea of seller financing.
No, obviously not. It worked out. So,
yeah.
And obviously, I think because of the connection of this fella being a painter and, knowing that I'm a builder in town and been around a long time, I've paid him on time, et cetera, that there was already a level of trust, I suppose, built in with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is, that's a really important part of success in creative real estate. As people move along in their creative investing careers, after a while, and Andrea Workington, the divine Andrea, is the best example of this. You're in the business, you do what you say you're going to do. You're a reliable person. And so when your painter introduced you, his friend is prepared to take that as validation of who you are as a reliable person. Instead of you coming in cold and having to sell it, you're kind of halfway there because you're already a reliable person from her friend's viewpoint. So as you start talking, it's an easier conversation for sure.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So if I remember the details, this was property for, I think it was $160,000. Now, before we get into that part, do you remember how long it took you after taking our course and really understanding what an agreement for sale was? How long it took you to find this deal or to actually do those kinds of deals?
Terrible with timelines, but it was probably somewhere in the range of a year, maybe.
Yeah, that's fairly common for people to 6 months to a year before they can put it into practice. All right, so I remember the purchase price was $160,000, and she had on the property an existing first mortgage of, I think, 120 or 125, just a basic plain vanilla first mortgage. She had a monthly payment. I think she had 2 or 3 years more on the term of it. It wasn't coming up for at least 2 or 3 years.
I think it was 2.
Was it 2 years? Okay. So 2 years, 120. The numbers are not exact in my mind because this was a while ago. Not exact in your mind either. The numbers don't stay there, right? You got to look at the paperwork. But so your plan for this property was to do the kind of renovation that you'd have to do to get rid of the smoke and update a very dated property. And so that's probably going to cost you a fair bit of money. Do you kind of remember what you thought it would take to do that renovation?
I
Money wise,
I think it was about 60 that I thought, and it was probably more like 80 to 90 that it took. And yeah.
So where was all that money going to come from?
Well, that's another problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, we looked at her situation, and she had a HELOC house, and she'd used part of it to buy a car, and I think it was 32 or 35,000 that was still available.
35,000. Yeah.
And I think my initial concern was, what if she taps into that? Am I on the hook for that? And then in thinking of that, I was like, well, how do I prevent her from tapping into that? And the most obvious way to me was, let's use it. So she's going to be your bank. She's already going to be your bank for the amount of the mortgage, which is 120, 125. Let's call it 35,000 left on her HELOC, or 32,000 left on her HELOC that she hadn't used. So you borrowed the 32,000. Remember, you got her to write a HELOC check and give you money. That's correct.
So, folks, I hope you're listening to this. So,
it's unbelievable in a lot of ways. Yeah,
it is unbelievable in a lot of ways. Mark convinced her didn't convince her. She was ready to be Mark's bank. Going to sell the property and be Mark's bank. Title, like, it can remain in her name. Mark's going to take over the payments on that existing plain vanilla first mortgage. And then he goes, I really need renovation money, and you have room in your HELOC. How about if you write me a check for $32,000, and I'll use that to start my renovation. And of course, I'll pay all that back to you at the end of the AFS term. And so Mark accomplishes two things here. He stops her from, after he closes, being in a HELOC, which might have been okay in this case because there would have been enough equity. But that's always a concern, right? When there's room on somebody's HELOC. So now she can't write checks on the HELOC, and she gives Mark $32,000 to start his renovation. So 160 minus 32 minus 125 is about. So you only gave her about $3,000 or $4,000 in cash.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
Payment. Nothing hardly. And what was the term on that? You have to pay her out. Was it 2 years?
It was a 2-year.
2 years.
I think she had 2 years left on her mortgage, so we set it to coincide with the end of the mortgage.
Yeah, and so
which was way longer than I anticipated ever needing to renovate it, but the thought was, what if I can't sell it right away?
Yeah. So your plan was to do the renovation and sell it and make money on the value that you
That's right.
added. Yeah. Okay. So it makes sense to match it up with the existing 2-year term of your underlying mortgage, because if it goes out that long, you can avoid any payout penalties. Plus, renovations take longer than you think. They always take longer than you think. Now,
sorry for the kids hollering in the background.
That's all right. We all have kids and lives and stuff going on. That's perfectly fine.
No, I'm trying to find my own, but I'm not wearing bright new white ones.
No. Oh, let's stop it. This is way more interesting.
They've got a band concert tonight. I think they're trying to figure out what they're wearing.
What the hell? Oh, yeah, that's good. So now renovation. You look at it. It needs this. Did you have any sort of idea in your mind how long you think it would take to renovate it and get it ready for sale?
The thought always crosses my mind, and I'm always wrong. You think probably 3 or 4 months. This particular ended up taking me a year because it was evenings and weekends, kind of outside of my full-time building career.
Right.
So I had to fit it in, and I was doing most of the work myself rather than hiring somebody, so that there was more equity for me.
Sure. Yeah. So you're a builder. You got to take care of your regular builder clients during the regular work week. So a year of nights and weekends, got the job done. And once you got it done, then what? Now you're going to sell it to extract your equity.
I listed for sale myself.
How did that part of it go?
Yeah, I listed for sale. I have a hard time thinking, and sorry if there's any realtors on here, but I have a hard time thinking I spend a year of nights and weekends, and let's say 30,000 was the number that you're going to come out with in the end, and you pay half of that to a realtor.
Yeah.
I struggle with that, but I've also sold and bought a lot of properties on my own without a realtor. I'm very comfortable doing that. So basically, I put a for sale sign on the lawn.
All right.
I advertised it on Facebook and Kijiji, and started showing it. And a couple of the first people that came through wanted it. So we set up that deal, and not too long, and they were the new owners.
Well, that worked out. Pretty well for you. Were you happy with the profit side of it in the end? You don't have to tell us exact numbers of
you always wish there was more, but on the other hand, it was worth doing. Not where you're only like $5,000. I did this for $5,000.
Yeah, you did better than that.
No, it worked out okay.
All right, and the wonderful thing is that now you've done an agreement for sale, and so as we like to say, if you understand the strategy, you'll recognize the opportunities.
That's right.
I want to go back to the HELOC. And at the beginning, it looks like you're paying $160, the mortgage is $125. So that's a $35,000 difference that you got to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you start to look at the title and see the HELOC and be concerned about the balance that she could still write checks on after you have it.
Yeah.
You come up with the idea of, I do need renovation money. So why don't I just ask her? So I still marvel that she went, sure, Mark, I'll write you a check for no problem. So, what's your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I still marvel at it sometimes too, Barry, but ultimately, I think one of the things I've learned from this and other deals too is that you just, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So if you think of something, ask. And you never know what people do. You
never know. And we certainly say that. You heard us say it at our various focus workshops that you've attended, is you cannot prove what a seller will do. You don't often know their complete motivation, but you just don't know why they do things. And they'll do things that you would never think of doing. But
That's right.
if you're always playing for win-win, if you're solving somebody's problem, and in this case, I think I recall that she had the place rented, the renter left, they didn't want to get involved with another renter, just wanted to get rid of the property and didn't want to use a realtor. So that's the problem that they have that you're solving by coming up with suggesting that you would buy from her using the agreement for sale strategy from someone who trusts you. So you already have established a level of trust. If you go in with a problem-solving win-win mentality, then really good things can happen, and you cannot predict what sellers will do. So just ask. That's a really good takeaway.
Right. Yeah.
One quick question.
Really good takeaway. All right. So Donna says there's a question. To clarify, who pays the capital gain agreement for sale? So Mark bought the property, and if he made money on that property, he will have to pay whatever tax is payable. It's his tax to pay. And in his case, so when you buy a property to renovate it and turn it around, I don't think you get capital gains treatment on that.
No, that's
that's a business. That's an inventory business thing, and so you pay tax. Now, in your case, Mark, that's what you do. That is your business.
That's right.
So it's an active business, a bit of income for you. So that's how you would have reported that one, I reckon.
Right. And so what we try to do, all our buy and holds are in our personal names. Mm-hmm. And if we know we're going in for a flip type of a deal, I'll put it through the corporate name. And that way there's no mix up with Revenue Canada coming after and saying, oh, you're in the fix and flip game, so we're not giving you capital gains on these others.
Yeah, folks, that's a really good point that Mark is making. If you're doing a mixture of things, if you have buy and hold and creative things, you do have to keep those separate. And one really good way to keep them separate is like Mark does: buy and hold in personal name. Anything creative is in the corporate name. That way there's ups about which property is which, and that will stand much better CRA scrutiny if they ever decide to audit you, which somehow I think we're all going to be audited sooner or later.
Hope not, but
yeah, me too. Fingers crossed. No, you never know. That's right. Okay. So that was agreement for sale number 1. So let's move on to agreement for sale number 2. Tell us about how you came across it and
sure. So this one,
the circumstances.
I had an ad out for a place for rent. One of my rentals was empty, and so I put an ad out, and someone contacted me looking to look at the rental. So one of my questions for everybody that's looking to rent is, why are you moving? And the answer in this particular case was, my landlord's selling the house. Oh. So, okay, I keep that in the back of my head. And when I go to do reference calls, of course, the landlord is one of the reference people that I phone. So in the course of the conversation, I say, oh, I hear you're the house. And they're like, yeah, that's right. I said, oh, well, what are you asking for it? And have you got it listed and things like that?
Yeah.
Turns out she hadn't listed it yet. She had the renters still in there, and would be coming to Stettler in the next few days. Would you like to have a look at it? Of course I would. So we arranged to have a look, and I pulled up to the house and go in the house, and she meets me at the door, and she's almost in tears. The house was a mess. They weren't treating her house very nicely. So it worked out in my favor too, that I didn't get a bad tenant because I saw how they lived. And so at this point now, I've got a very motivated seller. She's come in, living out of town again, and come into this rental. These people were looking to move out, or she was looking to move them out. I don't remember which, but anyways, it was an absolute disaster, and she was a wreck at that point too. So we started talking about agreements for sale because, again, I said, I can help you if you can help me. But honest, the banks are a little bit tight right now and they don't like a person with a lot of properties. So found out what she wanted for a purchase price, or what she owed basically. And she was fine with that. She said, I just want to get out of the house. And so we talked about it, and I told her what I was thinking of doing. This is what I do. I fix and flip. And I said, well, there was this one over the other one that we just talked about was only a block away, and I had just finished another one block and a half away in the same neighborhood. And she's like, yeah, I know. I've seen you around. So, just again, small town. And so she was, very agreeable to working out a creative financing deal. And the other thing on this one was I asked her what she needed for a down payment, and she wanted, I think it was $25,000. So I told her that's going to be a little bit of a challenge too, because I need a bit of a bankroll to renovate this place. I think it was looking at about 100. I was thinking 100,000 probably to renovate. It was a little bigger. It was a 4-level split. What was it? 1,400 square feet, maybe.
Yeah.
Plus your basement areas and so I think it was close to 2,000 square feet living space. And anyways, that might be a little tough to come up with 25,000. Let me think about it for a bit. So anyways, when I got back to her, I said, tell you what, I'm okay with the 25,000, but again, I need you to work with me. Can we do 1,000 a month for the next 2 years? Well, I guess it was 24,000, 1,000 a month for the next 2 years. And what she needed that money for was to pay off some other debt. And she was good working with it that way because she was setting up a payment plan on that anyways. And so that's what we did. We made $1,000 a month towards the deposit and set up an agreement for sale to take over the bank payments.
So, a few interesting things come up out of this. Again, people always are saying, where do you find these deals? And lots of people think the only way you can do it is by heavy and expensive internet marketing campaigns, social media, other kinds of advertising, all of which cost money. But hear what Mark said. He has a buy and hold portfolio. He was advertising a house for rent. He got an inquiry about somebody who was looking to rent. So, you check references. Who do you check? You check the landlord. And in this case, the landlord was selling the house, which is why the tenant wanted a new place. And so if someone's selling, you can, as you check references, phone them and say, so I'm da-da-da-da, understand you're selling. And then you can open the conversation.
And they're usually very open to that conversation because they want to get rid of their house. So this is a
fortuitous circumstances. Because, yeah. And you get over there and see what these folks are like and going, okay, well, I'm glad I did this. I would never rent to these people.
Right. Yeah.
So you're a winner on that front. And then you're also a winner on the finding the tired landlord. So this is someone who lives out of town. It's hard to manage for her. She's not a professional landlord. Guessing it was the only house she had. I remember she did used to live in Stettler and live in that house, but she moved to Banff or Canmore or something like that and kept the house.
Airdrie, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you've dodged a bullet from a tenant. You've found a seller to talk to. You figure out that they're not only a seller, they're a tired seller who is absolutely motivated to sell that house and get out. And what is Mark doing? He's coming along. And after some exploration, problem. She didn't need to get all her money right away. She needed some money, but she was able to take it at $1,000 a month to keep debt going. And so it was that so really your money in is $24,000, but only paid at $1,000 a month. So you're into it for $1,000 and an agreement to pay another 23, plus taking over an amount equal to her underlying mortgage.
That's right. I think on this one too, did
So,
she not?
Folks, one of
She
the
owed
troubles.
CRA.
That's right. She
And a credit card.
She had credit cards to pay, and she owed the CRA money, which she told you about. She said she owed the CRA money. So I think one of our big concerns in this was, what if the CRA has something against the title?
Right.
And they didn't have anything against the title. And so once you've sold by way of agreement for sale and she's got all the money she's going to get except for the $24,000, then the CRA kind of looms in the background, and they're pretty powerful if they want to put something against the title. But we did some research on that and thought that you were going to be okay. We didn't think that was going to bite you. And so you put together a deal, and she was going to take it to her lawyer, who remained nameless on this program. We always say it, folks, when you're doing creative deals, especially when you're doing agreement for sale deals, you really do need a lawyer on the other side who not only understands an agreement for sale, but who also doesn't object to the notion of them. There's lawyers who understand exactly what it is and go, I would never do that. That's crazy. Why would you? And they coach their seller clients against doing it. In this case, I really don't to this know what was up with her lawyer, because we just couldn't get anything out of him. We couldn't get him to respond. And
no response.
She was having the same trouble, wasn't she?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember we just kept poking away at it, and finally we drafted up the agreement for sale. Normally I talk to the other lawyer about what it's going to look like. Finally, we just drafted up that agreement for sale document and sent it off to them for review. We sent off 4 copies and said, your review. And then about a month later, they sent back 2 copies signed by their client. They didn't talk. They didn't ask. They didn't want anything changed. They just signed it and sent it back, which is great for you, because
it worked out for us.
It worked out nicely for us, but it was really weird that that's the way it went with the other lawyer. So folks, I'll just say again, these things go a lot better if you can manage to get the side. I mean, normally we're buyers on the AFS side of things, but sometimes you could sell. Anyway, you need a lawyer on the other side of the deal who understands and doesn't object to the AFS concept. In this case, we have no idea what that lawyer thought, because he didn't talk to us. But we did get the documents back, and so we closed the deal. You started making payments, and you started the renovation. How long did this one take, and how did that one go for you?
This one, again, it was one of those almost year-long projects. I worked on it a little bit more. I had more gaps, I guess, in my other work. So sometimes I'd spend a week at it or whatever, but it was pretty extensive. Yeah. I basically put out the basement area. There was I don't know if you can picture it when you come into a lot of houses, there's the living room, and then there's the wall separating the kitchen in an L shape, and then the dining room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I tore that all out and all new cabinets, put a big island in. And yeah, all new. Oh yeah. In the ensuite, it used to be a little bit of just a half bath. I tore one of the closets out to make it a full ensuite, custom tile shower. Tried something new with the toilet and the taps, whereby the toilet tank was in the wall, so it was a wall mount toilet. A couple different things that I'd never done before, and dressed it right up. But yeah, all new flooring, all new paint, all new plugs, switches, lights, new doors, trim. Yeah, other than gutting it, it was pretty much new. There was a fair bit of drywall had to be repaired, even torn off and redone, things like that. So
yeah,
it was a lot of work. Exterior, all new roof. There was hail damage to the siding and the eaves trough, so we did a bunch of that. Some new landscaping a little bit. The garage at the back, we had to, there was some drywall on it. The ceiling wasn't drywalled, so I drywalled that, resided the garage and all of that as well. New door. Oh yeah, it was a big project. But again, got it decent enough price, and I think on this one I'd figured it was going to be 100. No, I figured it would be 80. So I said, let's take 50% more. So bounced it up to 120, and I think we ended up at 145 as far as renovations go. So
yeah,
more money than I wanted, but typically you make your projection, add a whole bunch to it, especially in today's day and age when things are going up.
Isn't that true? You know, and that is that's another important point for people to think about. Fix and flip, as you know, is a very popular strategy. And I mean, you're a builder. This is what you do for a living. I mean, if you as a builder, you know, pretty much always run into more to do the renovation than you expected, then, you know, people who try and budget to the nickel are going to get killed, because that's not the way it works. It always costs more and takes more time.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that too, in the sense that being a builder, I have a high standard, because I'm looking at it through the eyes of, if I'm building for you, you're going to have a high standard. And I have a hard time knowing it sometimes. Like, I'll look at it and go, no, this needs new windows. I'm redoing the siding. I might as well do the windows. So sometimes it can just run out of hand on me just from that point of view. But when I do it, I want to do it right. So
I've Don and I just finished selling a couple of houses, and in the getting them ready for sale, you know, the doing it right meant I spent way more money getting it right but that's a philosophy. I felt great about the product in the end. Everybody was happy to move in. They sold quickly for decent prices. And so, I could have made a little bit more money, but sometimes I think we're not hard-hearted enough. We're not paying attention to what the goal here is. But you have to recognize who you are in the game. And if that's who you are, that's who you are. So you can make it work and still be happy with yourself. And what about on the sale? The last one you were able to sell on your own. You understand how these things work. How did you sell this one? Same thing?
I put it on Facebook, put a sign outside, put it on Facebook. Within, I think it was an hour and a half, I had my first response on the Facebook. No, sorry, it was within a few minutes. Within an hour and a half, I was showing it to them. And ultimately, they were the ones that bought it.
Right.
I had several responses, showed it to a couple others, had another backup offer come in on it. So it sold right away. Yeah. It was, of course, subject to financing. So it was a couple of weeks before I actually knew that it was sold.
Yeah.
But basically, what's your asking price? And they were happy to pay that. It had a huge yard. They had kids. It had the garage. It was everything they were looking for, basically. And then, it was subject to their house selling too in a even smaller town, which kind of concerned me. But I think it was the first 3 or 4 days in their place sold too. So this one was not an issue to sell.
Okay. So you sold again. Apologies to realtors who are listening. Mark's comfortable enough with the process, and he's done this enough times. If you understand your market, and if it really sign on the lawn and putting it on Facebook pretty much got rid of those houses right away. You know, in a different market with a tougher product, you might have because that's probably where they could bring their professional expertise and do something different than what you can do in a reasonably good market with a very nice looking product. So we're not dissing realtors. We love realtors, and they
have their place.
They definitely have their place for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So so that one worked out nicely. Again, the matter of their lawyer came up. Her lawyer came up again as we were trying to figure out and I think she ended up saying that she again was having trouble reaching him. So I did something that I don't normally do. I went, you know what, ma'am, this is reasonably straightforward. Just confirm for me that this is how this goes, and this is what you're expecting out of it. And if we're all okay in that, I'll be your lawyer and move this along, because otherwise I'm going, people want to move in. They want to get going. Your buyers sell their house and they want to move into this one, around going, well, if we can just they wouldn't understand all that background stuff. So that part of it worked out nicely, and so that's the end of deal number 2.
That's right. That was, both of them were good deals. They weren't I guess maybe the second one was a little more cookie cutter, but the first one didn't feel cookie cutter. No,
the first one wasn't cookie cutter, and they never do when it's the first one you're doing. It's just really, when you're doing creative deals, the first one is tough. It really is tough to get that first one done. Any deal, you buy your first buy and hold, that's scary. Right. But you get one under your belt, the second one is about half as hard, probably, because you kind of know your way around the process and how the numbers fit together and what you say to people, and by the time you do deal number 3, then you're pretty comfortable if you're keeping it roughly within the same parameters. So speaking of deal number 3, when is deal number 3 going to show up? You got your ears open? Are you looking at AFS deal to do?
This one probably won't involve you very. It's a bank foreclosure that I've got an offer on. And it was a house back alley to the one that I just finished, the one we just talked about.
Okay.
And I had approached the lady because it had been listed for sale, and then I saw the sign wasn't there, so I went and knocked on the door and said, "Are you still interested in selling? I see the sign's not here, but it sold, so are you still interested?" "Well, yeah, I might be interested in selling." So we had a chat and found out what she owed and what she wanted and so on. And again, it was a bit of a mess and very dated and whatnot. And so what she needed out of it, I think she was asking originally 170, and I think down to 160 with the realtor. And I think she 130, and I don't know, I'm going to say 7,000 back taxes or something. Anyways, my look at the place told me 120 was the max that I was willing to pay for it. And so she wasn't interested in it. So that was last summer, towards the end of the summer or early summer, I forget. And then this spring I saw it listed again with the realtor. Again, same price, no action. And I guess maybe we should step back a bit. The fellow that was living in the basement, somehow related, I don't know how, a little bit into the drugs and dealing, by the sounds of it, well known to the in the neighborhood and so on. So that makes it a tough sell right there. Anyways, again, the listing came off, what was it, 2 months ago maybe? I saw it come off. And in the prior conversation, I'd actually gotten her daughter's number, and she'd asked me to call her daughter and talk about, buying the house or whatever. So I'd kept that number. So I phoned her when the listing had come off, and I said, "Oh, I see the listing's off. Are you still interested?" And she says, "Well, actually, Mom's moved out, and the house is in foreclosure." I'm like, "Oh, well, if she just moved out, it can't be too far along. So let's figure this out. Who's the lender?" So she figured out. She had paperwork and gave me the phone number. Not 5 banks. It was a smaller private lender. So I phoned them directly, and I says, there's this property in Stettler that's I know is in foreclosure. Probably just went there. Is it too late to to step in and stop this process? And basically they're like, well, we're trying to get title on it now, but with land titles being so backed up, who knows when it'll be. We'll talk to our legal team and see if we can accept an offer or whatever. We'll get back to you. A month goes by and I hadn't heard anything. So I phoned them again and said, this property in Stettler, I'm still interested. Well, I think we can go ahead and accept an offer at this point if things happen. So I said, well, I'd like to go look at it again. So they made arrangements with the property management thing to let me in and go have a look. And it's disgusting. So I sent pictures back to the lender and talked to them about it, and basically told them, hundreds my number. And they weren't sure about that. We're underwater on that, is what they said. Right away is underwater. And I said, well, I understand, but you're gonna have a hard time selling this. So I just talked to the top cop in town, and very well known drug house and things like that. You're gonna have a hard time selling it. I said, go ahead, you can list it if you want, but I'm here to work with you if you want to work with me. And so anyway, well, would you be interested in financing? Well, yeah, probably. What's your terms, what's your interest, all that sort of thing. So we talked and sorted all that out, and they agreed to the 100, and I get 60% financing for a 1-year open mortgage to fix and flip, and away we go. So should get possession of January.
That is outstanding, Mark. That is outstanding. So folks, are you hearing this? Mark just asks. He asks questions. He if there's any chance, he says, listen, are you interested in selling? He follows up. He kept the daughter's number. He, has a realistic view of what the price is. He, understands what the house is all about. He talks to the police in Stettler so that he's coming from a position of strength, knowledge-wise, about the place. That lender, private lender, is looking at it and going, okay, we also knew it was a drug house. We know it's not worth very much. We know it's underwater. We know if we have to foreclose and then sell it, we're going to be further underwater. That lender has said to themselves, this is a chance to limit our losses. And they probably found out about you and asked around about you and figured out that you were a reliable guy, which again, causes people to say, yeah, we can do a deal with Mark. So that's really good. Yeah. That's really good.
Interestingly enough, when I was talking to him about their lending situation, I was asking him questions too about, as a lender, what kind of a lender are you, and sort of thing. Anyways, it turns out that he said, well, I have connections and people in Calgary too. And I, back in my head from these rain meetings, I'm like, well, I've met somebody. I said, do you know this Calvert Home Mortgages? And he's like, yeah, that's who I was referring to, actually. And so having that connection, even that I'd met them at a rain meeting and talked to them, and that was just another thing that, oh yeah, here, this guy is actually he's not just a fly-by-night type of deal.
Yeah, all of that goes to establishing credibility and bona fides, and people want to trust the people they're dealing with, and you try and give them reasons to do that. So this is, this is essentially, vendor take. I mean, they were going to take over the property, so it's seller financing, just a different form of it than an AFS, and that's what we're looking for, folks, is sellers who will be our banks. And so that was a perfect example of. So that's really good. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So it always pays to keep your ear to the ground and even knock on doors. There's another one 2 doors down from that one that I've already knocked on the door. I don't know. I looked at it 11 or 12 years ago and I thought it was a mess at that point, and they haven't done a thing to the house. So we'll see. When this lady's ready to move out, I might get it too.
Years later. And part of it is, when you're just looking for an opportunity that works, you talk, you ask. They don't all work. Lots of them don't work. No. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And you have to be patient. And now, Let's talk about being in a small town. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of times that, being in a small town, people do know you. I mean, what's the small town advantage? Not everybody lives in Toronto or
Well,
Vancouver or Edmonton or Montreal. Stettler,
yeah,
population, how much?
shy of 6,000
6,000.
for
Okay, that's a smaller
population.
town. Yeah.
Yeah. Oil and gas, agriculture, tourism.
Mhm.
Those are the main drivers, I guess, here.
Yeah.
It's kind of worried me a few times. Always think, oh, it's a one-horse town or whatever, but we've been through a couple of recessions and rental demand always been there, and we've had a couple big employers close. Tornado, Hydrovacs moved to Red Deer. That's 80 employees. Foremost closed. That was 80, 100 employees. Of course, they've
That's a
reopened
lot.
since and hired them all back, but those things happen and
Yeah.
makes you nervous.
Yeah. So when you're talking small town, that is certainly a downside, especially if it's a one industry town, that's very difficult. If it's spread out a little bit,
Mhm.
that's a bit different. I mean, Central Alberta is a reasonable place to be. I know Red Deer is kind of the steady eddy of Alberta. It just is not affected, it seems, as much as the ups and downs in other places. Yes, it goes up and yes, it goes down, but Central Alberta is a popular place to be, and there's lots of popular towns, and that's where Andrea Workington hangs out, and Red Deer is her central space. How far are you from Red Deer?
50 minutes drive to the outskirts.
50 minutes drive. So
An hour.
if you're looking at areas, folks, if it's a smaller center, make sure it does have some multiple probably employment opportunities for people is an important thing to look at. But back on the small town advantage, I guess so. For this third deal you're talking about, you wanted to get some information from the police. I mean, you kind of know who to talk to in Stettler on the policing side of things. You probably know all of the major figures, and you as well. I mean, you've been there a long time.
Yeah.
So
Interestingly enough, on this particular deal, it was the sergeant I spoke to. It he was one of the ones that came and looked at the second AFS that we talked about when he was transferring to Stettler.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was our connection there. And kids are in school with my kids, in sports with my kids. So we, chat at the track, we chat at volleyball, whatever. And he's on the street, he'll stop if he sees me and how's it going? What's up? And if I see him, I'll stop and ask him, oh, what do you know about this? Or have you had dealings with these people or anything like that too? Right.
Sure.
So a lot of, just friendly chatter, even that maybe doesn't even result in any real estate deals, but the connections, right? Always the connections. And sometimes it's your electrician. Oh, well, somebody's coming to rent, got a job. Oh, well, they happen to be hiring on with the electrician. Well, guess what? You know who the electrician is, so you phone him. Or I've had them phone me up and say, I got another electrician that I've used too. He's phoned me up and said, there's this house out at the lake that somebody's trying to sell. Would you be interested in it? So people just know who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And I think the same could be said in a neighborhood, in a city. If you focus on your neighborhood and you use certain trades, you use certain stores all the time, whatever, people get to know who you are and what you do. And just let them know that this is what I do. I'm looking for houses. I'm looking for rentals.
Yeah. You wherever you are, you have to say, you have to talk, you have to. When I worked in Calgary as a young articling student, my first boss was a guy named Tom Walsh. Tom was from Oxbow, Saskatchewan. He was a country boy, and he was president of the Liberal Party. He was the glad-handing guy. He had business cards in his wallet. You could not, within his orbit, that he didn't go, "Hi, I'm Tom Walsh, Oxbow, Saskatchewan. How are you?" And you get a business card, and he was a real estate lawyer. he drove so much work, and it's because he was friendly. He was always talking. He was always introducing. He was always talking. Tom Walsh, lawyer, and you're talking Mark Bradford, builder and investor. And so you're always just kind of saying who you are. You don't have to be overbearing about it. You don't have to be in people's grill about it.
No.
But whenever you need to say in a friendly way about who you are and what you do, you say, and then over the course of time, things build up. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, but you've been in Stettler for all that time. So you've built a profile, and it's, you're doing very well by it. So, all right, Mark. Well, you've been great guest. Thanks for coming on and telling us about your adventures in Stettler with your AFS deals, plus buying that foreclosure. I think I found it interesting to revisit those and find a third one you've got going on, because that sounds like a real good deal for you. So thanks again for coming on, and we'll keep in touch and have fun at the concert tonight. I guess you're going to that.
Yeah, very good.
Sure,
I think they've left without me, so I'm gonna have to make my way in.
All right. Okay, Mark, thanks a lot, and we'll catch you up later.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye now.
All right. Good night, everybody.